This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, we now bring you a discussion on India-China border situation in Ladakh. The participants are retired Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, defense expert, and Ajay Banerjee, journalist.
There have been important developments relating to India and China. China this morning accepted that 4 of its men had lost their lives during the Galwan clash with the Indian Army on June 15th in eastern Ladakh. It also accepted that colonel was injured in the attack. We know these 5 people because these 5 have been given gallantry awards. Before our discussion, let us listen to our special correspondent Anshuman Mishra from Beijing.
For the first time, China admitted casualties on its side at the Galwan Valley clashes. The news came through the official media channels, which gave details about the 4 Chinese soldiers who died in the clashes. It took almost 8 months in revealing the Galwan casualty figures. Later in the day, it was followed by the Chinese Foreign Ministry briefing. The spokesperson said that this was in response to varying kinds of media reports and to better uphold peace and stability along the border. Yet at the same time, she said there was no relation between the timing of next round of talks at Corps Commander level and the revelation about Chinese casualties in Galwan Valley clashes. As the 2 sides engage into 10th round of military talks on the Chinese side in Moldo tomorrow, they would be looking ahead to make progress in the process of disengagement. Anshuman Mishra, Beijing.
General Kulkarni, what does this mean to you and how do you see it?
I think it's the first acknowledgement by the Chinese officially that they have lost 5 men, though it may be much, much more. It's natural for the Chinese, like even during the entire pandemic, they have hardly accepted any of their death. So presuming that at least the Chinese way of accepting that, yes, the clash at Galwan and that they have lost 5 men and their commanding officer has been honored as a hero, and all of the 4 of their men have been honored as for defending the territorial integrity of the nation. Indicative that the China has acknowledged and accepted that they've had a clash at Galwan.
General Kulkarni, these 5 have been given gallantry awards. That's why the names have come out. In India, we lost 20 lives and we gave gallantry awards to 6 of those. Does it indicate that these 5 have got gallantry? There could be many more who have died. Is it an indication? Because these 5, they are not accepted, they are dead. They are saying that 4 have died and 1 is alive and all 5 have been given gallantry awards. So gallantry awards may not be the benchmark of arriving at a number of dead. The number of dead may be much more. Is it correct?
Absolutely. It does not necessarily mean that of the 35 or 45 that may have died or even more as what the various news agencies report the world over. But yes, they have acknowledged of about 5 who probably would have contributed much more than others, and all others may have died in the fist fight that they've had with the Indian soldiers.
General Kulkarni, in China, there was a lot of social media backlash. When India lost 20 men, they actually honored those 20 men. Their families were honored. Some of their wives were given class 1 jobs. They were given gallantry awards. The Prime Minister and the state chief ministers of the respective states, wherever these boys belonged to, honored their families. There was kind of gesture from the entire nation. In China, there was no such gesture. So that there was a social media backlash in China. Is that correct, that this could be one of the positions that China was affected by it?
Absolutely right, Ajay. I think that was probably one of the main reasons, and especially in the centenary year of the CPCs, which is coming up in July. They must be wanting to heal the wounds that have affected the common man in China, to feel that they do so much for the state, and the state has not even bothered to honor their men who have lost their lives. So at least this may be one of the ways of trying to pacify their own countrymen.
General Kulkarni, I'll bring you down to a tactical question now. On the 29th of August 2020, Indian Army troops occupied the Kailash Heights, which dominate the Moldo garrison of the PLA. These Kailash Heights, especially Rinchinla and Rirangla, dominated the route to Moldo, also the route to Stangur Gap. Do you think, as the Northern Army Commander General Y.K. Joshi is also referred to, that this occupation of the Kailash Heights in eastern Ladakh led the PLA onto the negotiation table?
100%. Reason is, we may be going as patrolling, but moment you occupy these heights, you're overlooking the Moldo garrison, Stangur Gap. You can see what they're doing on finger 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, wherever and whatever. It's like a bird's eye view. You're sitting in a helicopter and looking at what they're doing. There's no doubt that there were almost 5 rounds of talks that took place between India and China. Nothing was moving. And the moment we occupied the Kailash Heights, the moment the things changed by moving and occupying finger 4 and overlooking even as far as finger 8, that is where the Chinese got shocked that the Indians have beaten them. Indians have now got into a much more stronger position than they were. And it is that what forced them to come on the talks, and it is that what has brought them to pull back and accept this disengagement.
Then Kakoni, also tomorrow, the Lieutenant General level commanders meeting is on at Moldo on the LAC. It will be at 10 a.m. and the two commanders will be meeting tomorrow and discussing the first phase of the disengagement, which was to remove troops, tanks, guns and other equipment from the north bank of Pangongso and also from the south bank of Pangongso. There have been physical verifications done. The commanders will be meeting and probably be charting out the next course of action to talk about Depsang, Gogra, Hot Springs and other places. How do you see this panning out over the next 4 or 5 weeks?
I think it will be extremely interesting. Firstly, because this phase 1, which involved north and south of Pangongso, and thereafter verifications of it has been done, and that's what was stated earlier, that after the verification, when both sides would have accepted that the disengagement has gone as per schedule in phase 1, within 48 hours of that, the commander level talks will take place. Since tomorrow the talks are taking place, it can be presumed that the phase 1 has gone off successfully, resulting in the talks, hopefully now, that at least the Chinese will walk the talk in other friction point areas, primarily what you rightly said, Hot Spring, Gogra, Depsang, maybe Demchok, like that.
General Kulkarni, there's talk of Depsang. A lot of things is coming out from the Indian Army that basically it is about the control of the patrol points, that we have been stopping their patrols and they have been stopping our patrol parties. This restoration of patrols along the LAC at Depsang, how critical is it?
What happens is, firstly, we must accept that this is a predated thing. It has not started or it is not connected with that April 2020 incident we have been insisting on. Notwithstanding that, the very fact that the Chinese wouldn't allow our patrols to go to patrol point 10, 11, 11A, 12, 13 and obstruct it, I think with this confidence building that has now come up after phase 1 and as we move on, hopefully the other friction points will get resolved. I personally feel that Depsang being basically a patrolling issue, nothing where the troops have been amassed, will get resolved.
And what about the other points like Gogra or Hot Springs, which are somewhere like Pangongso?
I think they will all get resolved because this was the most crucial point, first and foremost, because everywhere they were eyeball to eyeball. You saw in phase 1 the armor tanks and the mechanized columns, the guns and the heavy vehicles had to move back. Then men had to move back. The entire area had to be flattened out and the original landforms as they existed in April 2020 had to be done. All of it had to be verified and only then the talks were to take place. The fact that all this has happened, I think the Chinese will move back to April 2020 in other friction points also.
General Kulkarni, a lot of senior retired people have been voicing their word of caution about what is happening. They believe that China may try something else because things are moving so far so good, but let the entire disengagement process be complete. Only then should we say that yes, it has been done. Is it correct?
See, what they're looking at, and everybody is voicing concern, and even I would say the same, that China can't be trusted. We cannot be complacent. We have to trust but verify. And therefore, we must respect all, suspect all, and be ready for any contingency that might come up. But having said that, at least if the Chinese are walking the talk, let's all look at it a little positively that things are happening in a win-win situation for both the countries. It's a mutual thing and it's all in writing, all to be verified. Yes, the Chinese are going back maybe 100 or 150 kilometers and from there they can deploy as fast as they can. But we must be able to trust them today, but we must not be complacent. We must be alert and vigilant.
General Kulkarni, this trust between Indian and Chinese army was built since 1993 when the first of the peace treaties was signed, followed by a sequence of treaties till 2018 or 19, the Chennai summit between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi. This trust was broken by the PLA in 2020. Will it take some time for the trust to be rebuilt? What could be, you think, the process to rebuild this trust along the LAC in Ladakh especially?
Let me tell you, it may just take another maybe 20 to 30 years to build this trust again. It is not easy. It was built over a period of time. We invested so much of energy and went out of our way to do things and just see what the Chinese have done. Now the onus is on the Chinese to prove that they mean good.
General Kulkarni, these tanks which we had deployed or the China had deployed or the heavy equipment, artillery, guns, other equipment, etc. General Sahib, it is very tough, those terrain, all of us know that. How difficult will it be for China to redeploy and for us to redeploy in case of any misadventure again by the PLA?
The Chinese will move back maybe 150 kilometers or 200 kilometers and they'll be deployed over there. Unless until China means good intent, totally pulling back from the Tibetan plateau and going to the mainland, China can't be trusted. And therefore, we'll have to be vigilant. When it comes to us, we'll have to be where we are. Till such time, we are 100% convinced that the Chinese are not likely to move forward.
Jan Kulkarni, when this happened in April 2020, it also showed that our military readiness and preparedness to tackle China at the LAC, it also showed that how quickly we could deploy, especially with the newer kind of planes, the C-17 and C-130, or the forward movement of the fighter jets. We showed the speed. I'm sure the Indian Army and the Indian Air Force have done these back-end exercises of quick deployment. How do you see the level of military readiness in this?
See, the entire thing, this is what has taken China by surprise. They never ever thought that Indians could mobilize from virtual zero to a level where they could stand eyeball to eyeball and a mirror deployment. They had already moved in or exercise, and from exercise they diverted all their troops in the eastern Ladakh. We never thought that the Chinese are going to be doing like this. The Chinese took us by surprise, and we surprised the Chinese by the way we mobilized. I think it's one of the fantastic mobilization. As a retired general, I feel very proud of the armed forces today. The way they mobilize is superb. They know that they cannot mess around with India, and India is not, they can just push over. It's a very, very professional army backed up by very determined leadership.
Jan Kulkarni, when we talk about deployment, we also talk about readiness. This level of readiness, especially during August, September, when the decision was taken to provide extra winter clothing for the additional troops who have been posted to the eastern Ladakh sector. You think the speed was enough? And when you talk about readiness, I mean the ability to hold ground and the ability to counter any attempt by the PLA. Was it satisfactory as per you?
See, satisfactory, yes, but we must also remember capacity building takes time, and therefore we must keep on building our capacity. That we were able to rise to the occasion is an excellent thing, but we cannot always take this as we're wanting to do it. We must continuously be preparing ourselves. I personally would say that we must have a credible deterrence against China and punitive deterrence against Pakistan at all times. No question. Yes, we took time to get ready because of the clothing and so many logistic requirements to be able to fight at such high altitudes, and that we were almost at the brink of war. But hereinafter, our readiness levels will have to be very, very high, not knowing what our adversaries are going to be doing at any point of time.
Jan Kulkarni, of course, this is a diplomatic question because a lot of times it is thought if the LAC is demarcated on ground, it would be better. To inform our viewers and listeners, the LAC with China is not demarcated on ground. For the past 175 odd years, they have not demarcated even with the British, nor with us after independence. Jan Kulkarni, this demarcation of LAC, will it help us?
See, when we say demarcation of LAC, firstly we must remember that not a single map has been exchanged between India and China. It was given for a few minutes and the Chinese withdrew it back. So there's nothing. Now, whatever the LAC perception that we have, we know how the LAC runs. But how do I know that the Chinese know it or not? And it is that reason that you find that the transgressions take place. And to avoid these transgressions, I think what this disengagement must lead to is to ensure that in future the LAC must be demarcated.
Jan Kulkarni, for world peace and the peace of the two countries, both are nuclear armed, both have got big armies, both have got growing economies. Do you think a constant conflict kind of situation along the LAC can be detrimental to the bilateral relations and also to global relations?
100%. Without fail, what you've just said, Ajay, it is that way. The world wants peace and the two countries have to have peace and tranquility. It is absolutely essential that the borders must be tension-free. If the Chinese do what they are doing, if they think they can continue to pressurize India in a non-kinetic way by putting pressures like this, I think China is not thinking right. It is best to ensure peace and tranquility along the borders, to ensure a peaceful world, a peaceful Asia, and it is a win-win situation for all the countries. There's enough that China can do, there's enough that India can do, there's enough the world can do. One doesn't really need to be an expansionist to ensure that I alone will do better and all others will not do. I think China will have to change their attitude and peace and tranquility must prevail along the borders.
Sir, you have given a brilliant insight on what it means, what the commanders' talks means tomorrow, and what does it mean for China, why the China went to the negotiation table, also the readiness levels, also the military preparedness to tackle China, and also why the demarcation of the border is important, and also global peace is important if India and China have to live together peacefully. Both are nuclear armed. Jan Kulkarni, thank you for talking to us.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on India-China border situation in Ladakh. The participants were retired Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, defense expert, and Ajay Banerjee, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.